We went and saw the new Super Mario movie over the weekend.
I've actually heard good things about it.
It's great.
Was it?
Yes. Did you play like Mario and all that growing
A
up?
little bit. I was never really a big gamer, like video games.
Right.
But obviously there was a period where that's all everyone did.
Yeah.
It was like playing Super Mario Kart.
For sure.
And then like the actual I probably played more of the original Mario games.
Oh yeah.
On
Super Nintendo?
On Nintendo.
On Nintendo, yeah.
Yes, first, and then the Super Mario Brothers on Super Nintendo. But that was
so the movie bases a lot of it basically references every there's characters from every game, not just Mario Kart.
Yeah,
like from every. It was really, and it's one of those as a parent you're sitting there like, this is entertaining. I'd watch this by myself.
Huh?
Yeah, it was really good.
And it's good enough still for kids too.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Coop, my 6-year-old dressed up as Mario. He had a Mario costume from Halloween. He was adamant about dressing up.
Yes.
And the 3-year-old he has a Luigi costume.
Yeah.
He woke up from his nap late and wasn't having it, but we were gonna dress him both up. But my 6-year-old had the Mario costume.
Love it,
dude. I haven't been to a theater since Toy Story 4. That's the last time I was in a theater, and they have changed tremendously.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I've probably been once in the last year, maybe.
Yeah.
We used to be.
It's been 6
we used to
years
go to movies
for me.
all the
or
time.
3 years. Whenever Toy Story 4 came out.
Golly.
I mean, we're talking recliners, waiters come into you.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot longer for you.
I might as well just been in a time capsule.
Bro, if you're at a regular theater with regular seats, like,
do those even exist anymore?
No, you can't. You can't.
No.
Because people got so used to saying, oh, you know what? I want another drink.
Yes. Boop. You press a button and this whole...
Bro, you sound so old. These have been around forever.
I really do sound so old.
It's like, dude, they have these new phones.
Dude, you don't have to twist the dial anymore.
Literally, it's like a movie screen, and you can literally, not only that, but you can connect to the internet.
Yes.
Yes.
It's wild.
That's what you sound like.
You press a button, and a fine young woman or man or non-biological person comes and takes your order.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It was wild.
It is. Honestly.
And you have the reclining seats. I'm telling you, I just don't there hasn't been a movie that's appealed to me.
Yeah.
And even before Toy Story, before that, who knows how long. So it's been once in the last 8 years.
So I have this thing when I watch new movies, and I don't know when, I think it started in college, where if I'm watching a movie, I have to have French fries. Like, it's this weird thing. Yeah, because in college, we'd do burgers and fries the night before a game. And that was the only time I would ever check out, was like the night right before I go to bed, Friday nights in college. And we always had burgers and fries. So I'd take my burger and fry back to the room and I'd order a movie. My whole scholarship check would go towards that movie at the hotel. And it carried all the way through the NFL. So it was like the night before game, I always watch one movie, but I have to have burgers and fries. And if we'd go somewhere and they wouldn't serve burgers and fries, I would order room service to get burgers and fries. Just a weird deal. So now when I go to the movie theater, because of being able to order food and whatever, same deal. So, I mean, luckily I haven't gone to the movies in a long time because there was a period where we went all the time and burgers and fries and it was starting to stack up.
Well, I highly recommend the movie. It's a great movie, great storyline. And there were some previews of other movies coming out that looked pretty good. I may be a movie guy again.
Dude.
I may be a theater guy.
I tell you what, man, I have been, part of the reason I haven't gone is there hasn't been any great movies. And if it is that good, then I'll spend $19 and watch it at the house.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing, is it's so expensive, right?
Yeah.
You pay, $10 a ticket and another $13 for a little drink. And so, I get it. But
there's an experience to it, dude. There's
awesome.
The experience is very different than watching it at the house, for sure.
And all three of my boys went, including the newborn. He slept through the whole thing, so that was great.
That's great.
But here's the best recommendation. I've said this before. I forget about something else, but here's how you know the movie was good. My 3-year-old sat still the entire movie, and that's
huge.
He doesn't watch movies.
That is huge.
So he was locked in.
All right.
The whole way. So that's how. That's how.
I did hear that. Is it Chris Pratt that does
he's
Mario?
I think he's
But
Mario.
he doesn't use an Italian accent?
No. No. Not that I...
Huh.
I would, but you wouldn't know it's Chris Pratt. I wouldn't have guessed it. It's very Italian. Like the family is very Italian. It takes place in the Bronx in New York or Brooklyn, one of the two. And so it's not like they're Americanized at all. Like they're very Italian.
I've just heard Mario didn't have an accent.
I didn't think anything of it while I was watching it. Didn't cross my mind.
All right.
That's weird. But yeah, no, it was great. It was a great movie. So go out and check that out. while we were there in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. So a couple months back, we blew the lid off of, remember, unnecessary tips?
Yes.
How all these,
yes.
And now everybody's talking about it?
Yeah.
That was basically...
We started that conversation.
Yeah, we started that conversation.
I want to start a new one. Everybody was thinking it, but we said it.
I want to start a new conversation about a cultural trend that's going the wrong direction. Ooh. It's pedestrian entitlement.
Oh, bro.
We have gotten our pedestrians in parking lots, grocery store, movie theater, wherever, have gotten way too comfortable.
Yeah.
And just could care less, zero regard for anybody else except for where they want to walk. Mm-hmm. They're walking down the middle of the walkway. They're walking out while people are trying to pull out. Like, there is just... Pedestrians have way too much entitlement right now.
You know what? I
think one of them needs to get run over.
I wouldn't even say it's pedestrians, though, because go to a Costco and tell me it doesn't carry over in there, because technically you're not a pedestrian, right? You're
you mean
shopper.
When you're in the store?
Inside the store. Because...
Well, I don't go to stores anymore.
That's a good point. Because what it's turned to is yes, like parking lots carries over, and I 100% agree.
I mean, you just got a family of 3 just walking right down the middle of the driveway.
It drives me crazy. And like...
There's no idea.
And one of the biggest fights my wife and I get into is her just like kind of lack of awareness. That's what it is. That's a great term for it. Lack of awareness. And like spatial awareness and other people. Yes. Like when people just walk into a door and let the door close behind them, like don't like notice that there's people like 5 steps behind you and you can't wait 2 seconds, drives me crazy.
Yeah.
When like you just walk and cut somebody off, drives me crazy.
Yes.
Like if you're a driver in a parking lot, like this weekend we were at Home Depot. And I had my 2 boys, and you know, I'm always on them about being aware and looking and this. Okay, I teach my kids that, look, you're in a battle with whoever else that you don't know in the parking lot, in a store, to be who can be more polite, who can let the other one go first. Like, make it a game, because you always want them to go first. You always want someone to walk through the door in front of you. You always want and so we're in a parking lot. And we're walking from the car to go into Home Depot, and same deal. And there's a driver, and pedestrians do have the right of way in the parking lot,
they
right?
do, which I'm going to fight that. I want to fight that.
No, I agree. but there's dual responsibility in this too, because there's just a-hole drivers out there that literally there was us, and then the next row over there was people like standing waiting, and this car just like literally just goes right through. Doesn't make eye contact, just cruises right through.
Yeah.
Like, that drives me crazy when people are just like, I don't care about anybody else, I'm doing me.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is you stopping and letting somebody walk across, which is the right thing to do, by the way.
It's the lawful thing to do, actually.
Yes.
By law, you're supposed to do that.
Is going to take maximum of 12 seconds out of your day.
Right.
Tell me the impact that's really going to have. Look, if your wife is giving birth in the backseat of your car and you're in the parking lot of the hospital that you're trying to get to, okay, you get a pass.
Right. Well, scarier than that asshole might be just lack of paying attention.
Yeah.
Or like you said, lack of awareness. Like that driver, who knows what they were thinking about? Maybe they didn't even. But that's even scarier.
Yeah, right.
They were behind a vehicle.
But to your point,
just pulling, driving through.
Yeah, and again, it's just an a-hole move. Yeah. Like, just acknowledge it.
I think you nailed it right on with lack of awareness on both ends.
But what does it come down to? It's self-centeredness. Right. It comes down to nobody on this planet is important as me and what I'm doing. Yeah. That's what it boils down to. Like, I'm not going to hold the door for you. I'm going to walk through, and I will grab my boys on the trap, and I will firmly show them compassion on their trap muscle. If they don't hold the door for someone, if somebody's 20 feet behind, stop, hold the door for them. Mm-hmm. And then look, if someone's holding the door for you and you don't make eye contact with them and acknowledge that you held the door for me, thank you so much for doing that. Then, we got a problem. Because nothing pisses me off either, too, when I hold the door for someone and they just walk out like nobody's there. Like the door's just magically holding itself open. That pisses me off, too. Oh, it gets me fired up. See, you didn't know that you were going to
call that manners.
You didn't know that you were going to hit a button like you did you?
I hoped I would, because this is the kind of discussions that need to be had right now.
I don't understand it. But to your point, the people that just don't even look either way, you're going to get your kids killed, honestly.
Absolutely clueless.
Because What happens if your kids are watching you just not care about anybody else? They're going to walk out of the road. What pattern are you teaching them? Yeah. So now what if they're like somewhere else where cars are going faster and you don't have the right of way and you just walk because you think everybody stops for you?
Yeah. Like that's a fight we're having with my 3-year-old right now. Just not running out. And little did I know I'm going to have to have that same conversation with 50-year-olds that are
And here, look, here's something, and somewhat pivoting, kind of related, sort of, is when you are raising your children, especially at the toddler age that you're at right now, really, really be diligent. Don't ever use the, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, 3. And here's the example that I was given, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world, is what is your kid going to do when you count to 3?
Wait till I count to
Wait till I get to 3.
Or 2.5. Or
right? Wait till I get to 3 if I think that there's a consequence. Right. Now, if you count to 3 all the time and don't do anything, they're just going to, okay, that doesn't mean anything. But let's just say you're one of the few parents that actually follows through and disciplines if you get to 3 and they don't do what you say. Here's the problem. What if you tell your kid, hey, stop. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, boom, gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
Like, you need them to respond to you immediately. When you say, and again, we're not perfect at it. I just start losing my mind if I've got to say it twice.
Right.
But you need to be diligent as a parent, especially with the young ones, is they need to know when you give a command, they need to respond. And I know we're going to probably get emails, which we don't get emails. We're going to get DMs.
Well, but judging by my movie characterization, we're probably going to get like snail mail.
Yeah, I was going to say 100%. Like, I can't believe that you wouldn't include non-binary and cat people that. But point is if you give a command, they have to respond. Out of life or death situations that you need them to actually say, okay, when mom or dad says something, okay, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have to count to 3 when they're running out in the middle of the road and then they wait till 3 to stop. It's too late.
Yeah. Agreed.
Sorry, that got kind of dark really quick.
No, that was good. That was good. That was always life lessons.
Yeah.
So less of that, less of idiot pedestrians through parking lots.
Those are probably the people that put the tipping thing and expect and look at you sideways when you're at a fast food restaurant and you don't tip.
That's right. So maybe less of that, but more of this. I also saw this over the weekend. South Korea is offering to pay lonely young people $500 per month to re-enter society.
What?
Now, this is a story I can get behind.
I was going to say, this is a great way for you to make some money.
South Korea believes many of their youth are so cut off from the world that they require monetary incentives to re-enter society.
Huh.
The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family announced this week they will offer $650,000 won, or $500 US, to these isolated individuals to support their psychological and emotional stability. You know the first thing I think of when I hear this? That's about where that I would need to be offered that to go to a networking event.
It's about what it takes for me to go.
So I'm all for this. Pay me $500 to go to networking events. That's what I think of.
My question is on that is like, how do you quantify that now I've re-engaged in society? Like you have to get,
I guess you got to get out and spend money.
Can you sign this permission slip saying that I actually came?
But isn't that wild? They're paying kids to get out.
Yeah. At least they're doing something.
Yeah. And again, I feel them. Like I'm as introverted as they come.
Think about in the U.S. like how much workforce we've lost just because people like they want to live through a screen. They want to live, connected through internet. Like they don't actually want to engage. Like I just really wonder. And I know there's studies out there, but just how much productivity we've lost because people have pulled back. I mean, I know I have. I don't need to be around people like I used to.
Yeah.
And it started with the pandemic. I honestly did. Like, I'm okay. And I actually prefer sometimes being alone.
I 100% prefer being alone.
Yeah.
Keep me reclused, please.
Yeah. How about you pay me $500 to never talk to anybody, and I'll just work.
Yeah, they're going to have to pay me to come out of my home.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, before we get into our topic today, are you tracking this Bud Light, Dylan Mulvaney thing at all?
A little bit.
You heard anything about this?
A little bit, yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? I guess if I'm sure everybody knows about it by now. It's a couple weeks old, but I guess Dylan Mulvaney's she started on TikTok, transitioning like a year ago, and like every day tracked day 47 of being a woman or something like that. And now apparently getting a bunch of sponsorship deals, and one of them was with Bud Light, and supposedly since they announced that, sales have dropped. And again, this may be fake news, but sales have dropped 30% since that ad campaign was dropped. And so everybody's just freaking out about it. Well, what's your thoughts? What you think?
So we went through this. Like back with the Caitlyn Jenner deal. And what bothers me is that, like, why is this such a big deal?
Yeah.
Like what impact does it have on us as individuals if they choose that, like, this is somebody we want to represent our brand? Look, it's their brand.
Yeah.
Like, they're choosing the consequences one way or the other. Now, like, if you choose not to buy their product or support their product, look, that's your choice.
Sure.
Like, one way or the other. Like, I don't have an opinion on that. But like, why is everybody so worked up about it? And then
that's my thought. And I was going to ask you the same thing. I was hoping you'd have an answer of why it is such a big deal. Because I don't drink beer in general, but I certainly don't drink Bud Light anyway. So I could care less who they're having sponsor. And in general, products that I endorse and that I like, sure, do I want them to stand for the things I believe in? Yeah, absolutely. But to me, the ultimate test is, do I like the product or not?
Yeah.
And that's going to determine. I could care less who's, up to a certain point, obviously.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want,
serial
agreed. Killer.
Yeah, for sure.
To a certain point, like, who cares? Like, I don't care who's sponsoring that product that I like. If I like the product, I'm going to buy the product.
Yeah.
So I just don't, again, I think I'm assuming it's just something to get people worked up about, just so they can feel like they have a team and they're, all on the same side, and they can, demonize the other side. I'm assuming that's what it's more about than actually the fact of the matter of who's sponsoring what.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm thinking. It's like, well, who cares? Like, why is this such a big deal?
Yeah. And again, if they, I don't think Anheuser-Busch, right, would make a decision like this if there wasn't some potential gain, right? Like, if there wasn't some sort of marketing ploy. Like, if you have a product like alcohol, like, you can't be selective on who can have this product and who can't. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just because, like, a transgender person or whatever is a spokesperson or has a sponsorship or whatever, what does that have to do with you drinking your beer?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how if you drink Bud Light, the whole thing right now, right? And I see it all over social media. It's like, gay. It's like, what?
Yeah.
How does that identify with it? I mean, here's the thing. It's like Nike has deals with transgender athletes. Like,
well, this same person has a deal with Nike for sports bras, which is weird because that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Has other deals with, I think, a tampon company, which is wild.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Well, again, I don't know enough about that space, but regardless is, okay, here's the thing, guys, is you guys want to live in this social media world where there's influencers and you have followers. Well, someone has created a huge following, enough to monetize it by the biggest brands in the U.S., and now you're pissed about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the world that you chose. Like, you chose social media to drive popularity, influence. And so, look, hey, it is what it is. Don't be mad because there's somebody that you disagree with. Yeah. And again, that's agree, disagree. But that has nothing to do with the product itself. And again, look, I know traditionally Bud Light.
Do you drink Bud Light?
No.
Okay.
Gosh, no.
Okay. Yeah, I don't either.
I don't like. Look,
I prefer not to drink urine.
Well, it's not even urine. It's like it's if you were to put like lightly carbonated water and then you were to drop like a rusty nail into it and then seal it up, shake it, and then store it for 4 months, like really hot, and then you like serve it to somebody.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think of.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Bud Light. But I don't know. To me, like, look, there are so many more important issues in the world. Like, why are we wasting any time on this?
I'm like trying to raise 3 kids. The last thing on my mind is who's representing what. And again, maybe that's the argument, is that culture war, you start bleeding into things like that, and what is it showing your kids? But to me, it's my kids are my responsibility anyway. Yeah. No matter who's sponsoring what, like the message that they receive, that's up to me. Yeah. And what I expose
100%, 100%. Now, here's the thing: is like we've had very candid conversations over like our concerns over this whole identity issue, anyways, right? Like the sexual identity and gender identity and all this stuff. Like there's a lot of problems that you and I both have just surrounding that. But just because a transgender person is a spokesperson is getting paid by a certain company, now you're just throw it in the trash. It's terrible. I don't know, man. I don't know.
You said it and I said it just a second ago. I've got way bigger things on my plate to worry about than getting worked up. Yeah. That's the thing. And just in general, I try not to get worked up over things that I have zero control over. That's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard, but I have no control over what Anheuser-Busch does. Yeah. So me getting my blood pressure and getting worked up and stressed out about it, what's that really going to do? Especially if I don't even buy the product.
Yeah. Anyway. Here's my thing. And this is the leaders that I look up to, like in the Christian space, the faith-based sector, right? Is okay, if you're going to be that person that is so pissed off, because this is a sin and this is that and this is this, but then you're going out and you're being divisive and you're being angry and you're being like, you're going to hate and you're going to boycott products and you do all this, like, tell me what that does to make your lifestyle, your faith, your God more attractive. Yeah. All you're doing now is you are pushing people away from your way of life because you just look like an a-hole. Yeah. So like, how does that, like and again, there's a whole nother conversation. So to me, like if you're out there like saying, oh, gay or Bud Light's this or Bud Light's that because they support or they have a spokesperson that is trans, like be very careful about what you're saying because all it's doing is making you look like an a-hole. Yeah. Like, there's probably a lot of people that agree that like, that's probably not the right person to put there, but guess what? That's their business. Yeah. That's the revenue that they've made a choice to gamble on. Yeah. And like it is what it is.
And like you said, and then it's your choice if you want to buy it.
Yeah, look, okay, fine. Go to Coors Light, go to Miller Lite, like whatever. But don't make a big deal about it. Right. Like that is a private decision that you get to make yourself when you're at the grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is just our take. Obviously, there's a wide spectrum of personalities and how people react to certain things. So, of course, you're going to have people that are going to make a big deal out of it. Of course. And that's fine. Do what you want to do. Yeah. For me personally, I'm not going to spend two seconds of my day worrying about it.
Bro, I got to teach 8-year-olds cover 2 and cover 4.
We're trying to get scholarships.
Cover 1 man. Like, I can't worry about Bud Light and who I'm trying to get scholarships.
Not worry about who represents who. So that's actually a good segue into the topic. So I just got done reading a book. It's called Think Again by Adam Grant. And he's I believe it's Wharton. I forget. He's a professor, a college professor.
Wharton,
a school that neither you or I could sniff.
Ever had any communication
in our life. But he's very well respected online and just he's a deep thinker. Very impressive individual. I don't agree with everything he says, but he makes a lot of good points. On a lot of different topics. And he wrote a book, like I said, he's written a ton of books, but this one was called Think Again. And the premise, the idea is, and I've never really struggled with going into a conversation open to changing my mind. I've never really struggled. I've never been so hard set fast on my ideas that I can't be swayed regardless of.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I heard you say like I've never gone into a conversation open to being swayed.
No. Opposite of that.
Okay. Opposite
of that. Okay. Like I don't, and I could be wrong here in my recollection, but I just think I'm not that tied to any of my ideas that I think I'm going to stick to this no matter what. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Yeah. And that's kind of the premise of this book. And now there's some things obviously that you want to have fundamental principles and you're not going to sway from that. But in general, like it's like this Bud Light topic or, abortion, whatever. Yeah. Maybe that abortion's not a great example either, but whatever the topic, being so tied to your ideas that you're never going to be swayed no matter what. And basically not having the humility to rethink or re-engage or compassion or any of that. Yeah. And that's basically the premise of this book. And I think this is a message. This book is a great message for what we're going through right now. Not everybody. A lot of people are so entrenched in their ideas and their teams, and this is how it is, and I'm not going to be swayed. I'm not going to listen to the other side because they're idiots, or they're too liberal, or they're too conservative, or they want to, whatever. So this book, I think there's a lot of good lessons in here for all of us. I think we can all improve on this idea of rethinking our thought, rethinking our opinions, rethinking, ideas that we have, as long as it's moving us forward.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of the premise of this book. And as an intro, from the book, it says, when people reflect on what it takes to be mentally fit, the first idea that comes to mind is usually intelligence. The smarter you are, the more complex the problems you can solve, and the faster you can solve them. Yet in a turbulent world, there's another set of cognitive skills that matter more: the ability to rethink and unlearn. Part of the problem is cognitive laziness. We often prefer the ease of hanging on to old views over the difficulty of grappling with new ones. Questioning ourselves makes the world more unpredictable. It requires us to admit that the facts may have changed, that what was once right may now be wrong. Reconsidering something we believe deeply can threaten our identities, making it feel as if we're losing a part of ourselves. We favor the comfort of conviction over the discomfort of doubt. We listen to views that make us feel good instead of ideas that make us think hard.
Yep.
I thought that was just such a good opening way.
Huge.
It's uncertainty that's the driving force behind why we're so entrenched.
So the difference between intelligence and wisdom, I think, is that, and we spent a lot of time talking about wisdom about a year back, is when you refuse to learn or relearn or adjust, that's a sign of lack of wisdom, because that is, and it's funny. So Friday, I went to this conference, and it's called like the Master's Program. Essentially, it's preparing for the second half of your life, and they used a couple illustrations. It was really, really interesting, and I'll show you these pictures, Ben, after. But as we're going through it, is typically in life, you gain experience, knowledge, and wisdom until you're about 45-ish. Then you plateau for a little bit, and then when you're about 65, 70, you have a sharp decline, right? But what they're saying is that, look, just because you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s doesn't mean that you can't learn more and keep that trajectory going up because you're continuing to grow. We just traditionally go to school, learn what you need to learn, and then get into get into your career, wait until your career is over, and then you just die.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is that model has been locked into us, that okay, look, education that's my window until I'm 22, 23, finish school, and I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to read any more books. I don't need to refine myself. What I know is what I'm going to know for the rest of my life. Yeah. And we're closed off to new experiences, new knowledge, because I learned this, and doctors are the worst. I hate to say it. Doctors are the worst. It's whatever I learned in medical school. Yeah. I'm smarter than all of you.
Right.
And they're not willing to adjust and learn more or redefine, hey, maybe what I was taught in medical school 15 years ago, that's already 20 years old at that point, maybe that's a little bit outdated. There's a better way to do it. I need to relearn what it is. Yeah. But we just have this ego in us that once we learn, that's it.
Yeah. And
we're so closed-minded. And I think, this is describing even smaller instances where it's if I believe something, but honestly, in this day and age, the information that we all know, for anyone ever to think that it's concrete and it's final, you're just ignorant.
Yeah.
Because how do you even know that information that you were given is accurate? There's so much nonsense out there.
Right. Yeah. And it's like it referenced, we crave predictability and certainty. And that's part of you don't change unless you're forced to change.
Right.
And why would I change if it's not aiding me or if there's no reason to? And so a few of us challenge our ideas and our thought processes because, again, it's uncertain, it's scary, but also because why do we need to?
Yeah.
We're getting along just fine, thinking the way that we think, and we're going to find enough people in our corner that we can continue thinking this way.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think the challenge of this book and hopefully this series that we go through is seeking out opportunities to challenge your way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because it's going to help you grow ultimately. And that's what we're all about, right? It's growth and change and again, for the sake of good, not necessarily just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But embracing that discomfort of uncertainty and really pushing into that and seeking out different thoughts and ideas. I love that personally. Yeah. Again, is it uncomfortable? Yeah, sometimes, but I love absorbing knowledge. I love hearing new ideas. To me, that's always been exciting to me.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not as big of a challenge. However, there are some thoughts that I have, there are some beliefs that I have that is a little more uncomfortable to challenge. Yeah. So the book talks about there's four. The analogy he makes is to different professions. But as we think and try to express our ideas, the first three professions are the quote unquote wrong way to think about it, and the fourth is the right way. And the first three, he titles them preacher, prosecutor, and politician. And so from the book, he says, as we think and talk, we often slip into the mindsets of three different professions: preachers, prosecutors, and politicians. We go into preacher mode when our sacred beliefs are in jeopardy. We deliver sermons to protect and promote our ideals. We enter prosecutor mode when we recognize flaws in other people's reasoning. We marshal arguments to prove them wrong and win our case. And we shift into politician mode when we're seeking to win over an audience. We campaign and lobby for the approval of our constituents. The risk is that we become so wrapped up in preaching that we're right, prosecuting others who are wrong, and politicking for support that we don't bother to rethink our own views.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool analogy.
Yeah.
Really spot on analogy.
And I think 99% of you, if you hear that and don't think that that's how I operate, you're lying to yourself.
Well, that was my question to you. Can you think of, the preacher, prosecutor, politician? Can you think of scenarios maybe where you're a preacher and you're trying to
100%. Okay, so like preacher is anytime someone comes to you with like they actually are asking for help or they're asking for guidance.
Yeah.
Like, and I think like fitness is something that always comes to my mind, or nutrition. Like you've always got something that you've got to share and you've got to say and you've got to tell and you've got this. I mean, in our profession, like in real estate, like we'll get in trouble where we just start telling how it's supposed to be done, how you do it. And this is how you decide on a space and location. And this is and it's like, we don't ever listen. Like they just ask one question and boom, now you're just word vomiting all of this stuff at them. Like telling them how to do it, tell them how to do this. And then I think prosecutor is when someone does start to bring up a conversation, what are we listening for? We're listening for holes in their arguments.
Yes, we recognize flaws in other people's reasoning.
Yeah. But when we're listening to their conversation, we're not listening to think like, okay, that's actually interesting. That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. No, all you're listening for is ways that you can come back with a rebuttal or a counter to whatever points that they're making. Yeah. And we've all had conversations with these people that they don't listen to anything you say. And typically it's usually when you're in an argument,
right?
Or especially with like your spouse. Like I know my wife and I will do this a lot. Is like I'll like skip over the stuff where she's valid, but then I'll just like poke holes in like the things where she like challenges me on stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so we do that, and it's like nothing's more frustrating. It's like, okay, you didn't listen to like 3/4 of what I said. I literally just said that. All you're listening to is the things that you're trying to call me out on for being wrong.
Yeah.
And the politician I think that's just life for everybody.
Right.
It's like, even if you know you're wrong, you're going to try to rally the troops behind you.
Yeah.
Because now, if I have the numbers, then maybe I'm right.
Right. The echo chamber of trying to find as many people that can
get
on your side of the argument as possible.
Think how destructive that is.
Yeah. No doubt.
Especially right now, dude, is like someone just comes out with something nonsense, whatever, but there's all these people in their comments like, preach, awesome, you're great. And it's like, oh, dude, you just made this so much worse.
Yeah. Well, think about how hard it was to get your gathering before, internet, before social media.
Yeah. You mean you actually had to be a good person?
You actually had to
like,
be a good person.
Make an impact, like real impact on people's lives?
Yeah. You didn't have thousands and millions of people that, comment on your post. So he said those are the three modes we fall into that may be flawed.
Yeah.
He said the right way to think about it though is scientist mode. Mm-hmm. He says if you're a scientist by trade, rethinking is fundamental to your profession. You're paid to be constantly aware of the limits of your understanding. You're expected to doubt what you know, be curious about what you don't, and update your views based on new data. But being a scientist is not just a profession; it's a frame of mind.
Yeah.
a mode of thinking that differs from preaching, prosecuting, and politicking. We move into scientist mode when we're searching for the truth. We run experiments, test hypothesis, and discover knowledge. To me, that just screams humility. That is the scientific profession done the right way. Is 100% humility. You are going into situations assuming you're wrong and trying to prove yourself wrong. You're not trying to prove yourself right. You're trying to prove yourself wrong. What is flawed in this hypothesis that I have? And you're going to run all the data. You're going to run all the tests. You're going to do everything, every experiment to try to shuffle out what the correct answer is. And then even then, once you have that established, you're not closing the door that in 10 years the science may change and you are and the thoughts may change. And you're still open to that.
Yeah, and honestly,
what a much better approach.
And it can be confusing. I think you're exactly right. Like, not the yes, it's a profession was what he's calling it, but like the scientists, we're not talking about like pharmaceutical companies that are scientists that are trying to pass a drug or pass a medication, pass whatever, or the FDA, for example. I would say it's like, gosh, like you guys live in this scientific method world and you're still not adjusting. You're still not learning. You're still not doing things. Now you've like boxed it in. But I mean, think about like if you apply your life, the scientific method to your life, right? And for those of you that are removed from 9th grade biology, it's make an observation. Okay. That is your hypothesis. And you ask a question. Okay. Then from the hypothesis, form a hypothesis based on the observation in question, or testable explanation. Okay. Make a prediction, test the prediction, key component, and then come back with the results.
That's too much work.
And craft your hypothesis.
That's way too much work. Isn't it easier to just call you an idiot?
Yeah. You're dumb. It's not what I think. You're an idiot. But again, make an observation. Like you see something, you're like, okay, that's interesting. You know, why is the grass coming in 2 months earlier this year than it was? Oh, it's global warming. What? It's green.
Yeah.
What?
Zero experiment, zero thought.
You just come to a conclusion.
Right to the,
no. And then you ask a question. It's like, okay, well, you know, what's different this year than last year?
Right.
And then you say, okay, you know what? Last year, winter was colder. We had a snowstorm in late March and the ground stayed frozen, whatever. And then you say, okay, so I'm going to say based on last year's weather versus this year, green grass started coming up earlier. Because it was a different weather pattern. Then you actually go back and test it, and then you say, okay, what are the results?
Yeah.
It's not that hard. Like,
it's not hard, but it does take a little bit more process.
Well, and then humility too.
Right. And humility.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit more thinking through the situation.
Imagine,
and not jumping immediately to your conclusion.
Imagine using the scientific method 20 years ago before you had one of these.
Yeah.
How much easier is that process now? It's like, guys, all it takes is a little bit of research that you can literally do while you're taking a dump.
No, that's too much.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. That gets away my Instagram post time. So
gives a new term to the meaning shit posting.
So true.
Yeah. Speaking of humility, and we talked about this last week, but he talks about smarter people have trouble rethinking. So from the book, he says, research reveals that the higher you score on an IQ test, the more likely you are to fall for stereotypes because you're faster at recognizing patterns. And recent experiments suggest that the smarter you are, the more you might struggle to update your beliefs. In psychology, there are at least two biases that drive this pattern. One is confirmation bias, seeing what we expect to see. The other is desirability bias, seeing what we want to see. These biases don't just prevent us from applying our intelligence. They can actually contort our intelligence into a weapon against the truth. We find reasons to preach our faith more deeply, prosecute our case more passionately, and ride the tidal wave of our political party. The tragedy is that we're usually unaware of the resulting flaws in our thinking. But when we're in scientist mode, we refuse to let our ideas become our ideologies. We don't start with answers or solutions. We lead to questions and puzzles. We don't preach from intuition. We teach from evidence. We don't just have healthy skepticism about other people's arguments. We dare to disagree with our own arguments. It requires searching for reasons why we might be wrong, not for reasons why we must be right, and revising our views based on what we learned.
Yeah. I think imagine going from that perspective is, okay, how could my way of thinking be wrong?
Yeah.
You go with
imagine asking that question next time there's a big topic like the Bud Light or whatever societal topic comes out. Okay, here's what I think today. Why am I wrong?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this in the past. I've done this exercise before. I'll take a topic and I'll write down from the opposite view of what a person who doesn't think what I think, what might be the reasoning that they would think that way.
Yep.
And what it does is it opens me up to, now again, maybe I may or may not change my mind,
right?
But at least I'm open to the opportunity to change my mind.
Yeah.
And again, that's not it is uncomfortable for certain topics, but again, I for whatever reason, it's just not that uncomfortable for me to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for that. It's not like something I did. It's just, that's just how I've always naturally been.
Yeah.
I'm not a very confrontational person. So I'm okay with, being wrong.
Yeah.
It sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be wrong, but updating my ideas is not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you. 'Cause there's very few things that, like, if I'm wrong, like, it affects me. 'Cause it's like, I count on one hand, like, that I'm like, look, these are non-negotiable. These are foundational things that, like, I just, if I'm proven wrong, it may flip my entire life on its head. Yeah. Kind of deal.
I will say in business, like in our profession,
I
do struggle with being wrong because in my mind, I think it's a reflection on my ability to do the job. Yeah. So that scenario for sure.
Yeah.
I don't want to say an answer or I want to be confident in my answers and not be disproven because that makes me look like a jackass.
But working with you, I know that you're going to go vet it out before you give an answer. You're not just going to, like, on a whim, just throw it out. Yeah. Like, you're going to say, okay, look, I'm already doing the scientific method behind before I provide guidance to a client.
There's been a couple of scenarios just this past week where if I had 10 years of experience, I would know the answer right off the top of my head. I don't have 10 years of experience, so I don't know. Yeah. So from a client's perspective, I should know this answer.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I'm like, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I go ask somebody who would know. I have no problem going to Tyler or somebody who's been in the business longer than me. I have no problem going up to them and saying, hey, I know this is a dumb question.
Yeah.
But so X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
I would rather get the answer and look foolish in the moment than give the wrong answer and look foolish
100%.
Long term.
100%. But that's how you operate.
Right.
There's so many people, especially in our business, that struggle with that. Like in consulting or advisory or, we're in brokerage, that they'll just throw crap out so that people think that they're smart.
Right.
And problem is you end up looking like a
if you're wrong,
moron.
You're running a big risk if you're wrong.
Because now you're costing companies millions of dollars.
Right. Yeah, it's a big, to me, that's right there is worth the short-term discomfort of having to ask for help from somebody who's been there before.
Yep.
Talks about why becoming an expert actually hurts our ability to rethink. It's when we progress from novice to amateur that we become overconfident. In too many domains in our lives, we never gain enough expertise to question our opinions or discover what we don't know. We have just enough information to feel self-assured about making pronouncements and passing judgment, failing to realize that we've climbed to the top of Mount Stupid without making it to the other side. As we gain experience, we lose some of our humility. We take pride in making rapid progress, which promotes a false sense of mastery. That jumpstarts an overconfident cycle, preventing us from doubting what we know and being curious about what we don't. So I thought that was interesting. It's the downsides of becoming an expert in your field.
Yeah, I think that's look, I think that is more of a psychological issue than it is necessarily an intelligence issue. Like if you become an expert, it's harder for you to adjust. Well, I would argue that some of the leading experts are at a point where they're like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like I literally don't know, because like they always say, right? Like the more you know, the less you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's the phrase? Enough to be dangerous?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the root of that is I barely know any, but I know enough that I think that I know it all.
Yes. But I think it comes down to more of a heart and psychological issue on how you are, because you can be highly intelligent but have very low like EQ, or you can be highly intelligent, have high EQ, and then you don't classify yourself as highly intelligent,
right?
Because you're like, there's so much that I don't know, and for me to take a stance and say that I am intelligent is highly unintelligent. He
actually talks, and we're not going to go over it, but he talks about the plus sides of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so the reason imposter syndrome is good is because it gives you just enough humility to think that you haven't arrived.
Yeah.
And that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
So yes, you are an expert. And yeah, there's downsides to that, of never feeling like you've arrived or made it.
Yeah.
But just enough humility to think I've still got work to do. I've still got ways to improve.
Here's the thing. Is there any area, any area that you're like, I'm an expert or borderline expert on that topic?
Depends on how you define expert. My first answer is no, but the closest thing to that, just because it was my profession, is the fitness world. And it's just what I happen to know. But I don't consider myself an expert.
Yeah.
To the average do I know more than the average person? Yes.
Yeah.
And so I guess in some ways that makes you an expert, I guess. But no. To answer your question, short answer is no.
You don't. But
I'm not an expert in anything.
Yeah. No. And I think same thing. And I'm like, what is it?
It's actually a point of what's the word? It's like, man, I'm a real piece of shit. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about anything.
So I just had that feeling right now because I'm like, all right. I mean, am I an expert in anything?
Yeah. No, I'm not.
I spent 30 years playing football. And I look around and I'm like, I'm an idiot compared to some of these people. And I put a lot of work into knowing the game of football, a lot of effort.
From an outsider's perspective, you were an expert in football because you made it to the highest level. But to you, you're exactly right.
Bro, like you're around and you're like, there's no way. So I think that's real for everybody. I think, fitness. You talk to like Lane Norton, who's a doctor in nutrition, and he's got like
his PhD,
PhD, but then also from a like physiology standpoint, he's a genius there and understands like hypertrophy. He understands like all that stuff. Like I'm sure he's like, I'm well ahead of everybody else, but I think he's also a guy that's like, dude, there's so much I don't know either, because I've seen how many studies are out there. I see how much data is out there, and I don't even know a fraction of it.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of a dumb example.
He's very much open to being wrong.
Right.
For sure.
Although his whole thing is telling everybody else that they're idiots. They're wrong, but again, it's when other people make these blanket statements. Like someone the other day posted something that like sugar is poison. It's like, is it?
Yeah. Let's dive into this.
Is it? Yeah. You know what I mean? So again, and I would say that person probably thinks that they're the leading expert in it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just don't sound, I don't know.
Yeah. Shifting a little bit, when our core beliefs are challenged. So just like what we're talking about here, this is a big one. So when a core belief is questioned, we tend to shut down rather than open up. The technical term for this in psychology is the totalitarian ego, and its job is to keep out threatening information. Neuroscientists find that when our core beliefs are challenged, it can trigger the amygdala, the primitive, quote, lizard brain that breezes right past cool rationality and activates a hot fire or fight or flight response. The anger and fear are visceral. It feels as if we've been punched in the mind. The totalitarian ego comes to the rescue with mental armor. We become preachers or prosecutors striving to convert or condemn the unenlightened. Unlike our height or raw intelligence, we have full control over what we believe is true. We choose our views, and we can choose to rethink them anytime we want. This should be a familiar task because we have a lifetime of evidence that we're wrong on a regular basis.
So that's what. Sorry, are you done reading? Are you still reading?
Yeah, no, I'm done.
Okay, he was still scanning. Like I was like, I don't want to cut him off if he's about to talk. But that's what I was saying. Is if you invest.
Well, it opens it up. It says we tend to shut down rather than open up.
100%.
Yeah.
But if you invest your entire life believing something, like, and you hear an idea that contradicts that, it really does. It's like, wait a minute, whoa.
Well, it says in that line, it says it triggers a part of our brain that goes right into fight or flight.
Yeah.
So it's almost, now you have control ultimately over that.
Yeah.
But the initial response when it's challenged, it bypasses all rationality and goes straight to the part where it's like, let's fight.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. It's on. When that core belief is truly challenged.
I mean, imagine it like if your entire life, right? Like you see your family a certain way. And then when you're 25 years old, you learn that you're adopted.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a core belief, like to believe like these are my parents. And like I believe that you are like biologically I was created from you, and then you learn something different. Like your initial reaction isn't going to be like, oh, okay, great. Let me meet my biological parents.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get to that point,
right?
But like, it's going to be a very different reaction than if like you're saying, hey, actually, Taco Bell doesn't use actual meat in their tacos. You're like, yeah, I can see that coming.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can see that coming.
This is Twitter in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You know, a big topic. Abortion, gun rights.
Yeah.
You go straight to your core beliefs, whatever belief that you have.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just throwing bananas at each other across the aisle, and there's no production.
That's supposed to mean.
I don't know. There's no productivity.
Expand, please.
There's just no productivity whatsoever in those discussions.
Yeah.
Because your mind immediately goes to, I'm going to protect this belief no matter what.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to listen to
Absolutely.
And obviously it doesn't help there's bad actors too that have alternative, agendas trying to, promote whatever. But the point is it bypasses all rationality. That's why, again, I sit back, like when you're removed from the conversation, like, dude, why are they getting so worked up? What's up with them?
Yeah.
Now, again, can you control that? Ultimately, yes.
Yeah.
But at least initially, it kind of hurts. And he talks about it punches you right in the brain.
Yeah.
Because that initial fire shot of something you've believed in for so long is being challenged.
The jejunum.
Punches
you in the jejunum. You ever see?
No.
You ever see, what's the Will Ferrell where he's the basketball player?
Oh, Tropic Thunder?
No, not Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder's
Semi-pro?
Semi-pro.
Okay.
When he gets
not Tropic Thunder, yeah. They're the Tropics.
They're the Tropics, yeah. When he gets pushed in the jejunum and he throws up.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time. That was
Sorry, when you said you're punching the brain, I think of jejunum. Anyways, but I agree, right? And some people's core beliefs may be different than other people's core beliefs. Right. So some people we were like, dude, why are you guys so worked up? Who cares? Who cares if Bud Light hires a transgender spokesperson?
Some people do.
Some people, that's a core belief.
A core belief, yeah.
You know, and again,
that's true.
You're looking at it a certain
point,
way.
Because if you've been raised a certain way to believe a certain thing in your whole life, you've believed that thing, and then when it's being challenged in that way, I could see how it could work people up.
Yeah. But again, ultimately, it's the emotional intelligence layered over this that dictates how you actually do react. You can react any way internally. You're entitled to react however you react.
You can't control the initial thoughts.
That's right.
That's an
That is what it is. That's what this is saying.
Yep.
But how you react publicly, that is now a decision that you need to make on, okay, what are now the impacts of how I react?
Yeah, it's when you have your phone in your hand, there's not a lot of barriers to get out the thought that I have in my head onto my phone if I'm not careful. Yeah. So I see something I don't like, and if I'm that type of personality, there's really not a big barrier for me to just start typing in the comment. Now, me personally, that's just not my personality. I've never once posted a negative comment on social media. Never once. It just doesn't occur to me to do that. But to some people it does.
And like even for example, there's been like businesses or contractors or that I've had terrible experiences with, and I'm borderline like, hey, should I go out and react? Yeah. Because other people need to know, like, so they don't get screwed like we just got screwed.
Yeah. There's a place for that.
No, but even still though,
I don't
still,
either.
It's like, why would I engage and lower myself? Like I'm never going to get business I'm never going to give business to them again.
Yeah.
Anybody that's in my circle, they're not going to give them business. Like, what else do I really need to do?
There would be a tasteful way to do it, in my opinion, though. You could, it's not like you write emotionally how horrible they were. You just say, hey,
here's what happened.
Yeah, if you're considering using this company, here's my experience.
Yeah.
Take it for what it's
Maybe
worth.
different for you. Yeah, totally.
Hopefully it's different for you, but I did just want to warn you. This is what happened to me.
Yeah.
That's a much more tasteful way to be able to get that idea out, as opposed to just the immediate.
But you don't feel
reaction.
as good when you post it.
That's true. That's true.
You haven't hurt them.
Yeah, that's true. A couple more sections here, and then we wrap it up. This next one, when beliefs become your identity. This is a big one. It says, most of us are accustomed to defining ourselves in terms of our beliefs, ideas, and ideologies. This can become a problem when it prevents us from changing our minds as the world changes and knowledge evolves. Our opinions can become so sacred that we go hostile to the mere thought of being wrong. And the totalitarian ego leaps in to silence counter-arguments, squash contrary evidence, and close the door on learning. Who you are should be a question of what you value, not what you believe.
Yeah. So, I mean,
there's so many topics.
We're in the midst of this, right? Politically, right? There's such a division because what you believe now is defining who you are.
Right. Right.
And that's so backwards.
Yeah.
Like, it's so backwards. Like, and I just fear this identifying with one side or the other. I mean, where that's going to continue to go, because it's not getting any better.
Mm-hmm. No.
There's times where it goes a little quiet, but the second there's something that pops up, everybody's just back on this division.
Yeah. Yeah. So for you and I, we don't spend a whole lot of time on social media, so it's not going to affect us as much.
Yeah.
But what about for our kids who will spend a lot of time on social media? Especially
your kids, maybe.
Well, okay. Then that actually answers my question. How are you going to help mitigate their interactions, and not just you're going to control them, but I just mean, how are you going to approach these type of topics?
Yeah.
How are you going to help them think about their ideas and portray these ideas in a healthy way as opposed to, an unhealthy way?
Yeah.
What are you going to,
it's a good question. And I think right now, because even as a country, we're becoming more and more diverse, like more and more diverse racially, more and more diverse ideologically.
Yep.
Did I get that?
Ideologically.
Second run at it.
I'm pretty
and so even like kids at school, whether on social media or not, the ideas that we have instilled in them are going to be challenged. Mm-hmm. They're going to be challenged at school, sports, all over the place.
Especially where we live. It's not, I grew up small, conservative, tiny town. Everybody pretty much thought the same way. Yeah. Not so much here.
Well, and it's morphing, it's changing a ton. And so how our kids react is going to be really important, because again, I do think that there's core beliefs that they do need to have and possess, because that is going to build the foundation of their moral compass.
Right.
So I think that there's things, but hopefully the core values that we're putting in front of our kids and teaching our kids are not ones that conflict with other ideologies as well. You know what I mean? Like there's certain, like, so that if say there's a different religion, and our kids are like, well, they believe differently than me, but like, what is the core of our core belief in our religion is that we love everybody.
Yeah.
Like regardless of who they are, is to show them love, show them support, and like you can disagree, but that has nothing to do with how you treat them, how you interact with them. That has nothing to do with it. So hopefully the core beliefs that we're teaching our kids are not divisive in nature itself.
Yeah.
So again, this entire book is, I hope, one of the core beliefs that we have is that, listen, like as you have conversations, like we want you to ask questions. We want you to test, and we want you to like come back and ask us questions and have conversations and dig through some of these unknowns. Because if we just say it's this way or the highway and that's it, like one, you're not going to raise a critically thinking child and an adult. And that is one thing that we are missing as a culture is raising individuals that can critically think and challenge their own thoughts and other thoughts as well. Because that is what makes a well-rounded human being and productive human to society. I mean, other characteristics included, but I just think you've got to be able to instill core beliefs that are inclusive of just everybody. Mm-hmm. And again, and this isn't that like the inclusive, like this, this woke thing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, regardless if you believe something different than someone else, great. But that's what makes this country amazing.
Well, that's the problem, is inclusivity is not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
Loving people for who they are, for what they believe in, and just accepting that is not good enough. You have to go to that next step now.
Yeah.
Which is,
it's not just,
fighting it, and you know what I mean?
It's not accept, it's now you have to agree.
Right.
And that's where it's gone too far. And that's the core belief that is misguiding, that is being pushed on our kids, whether it's from some parents or whether it's from schools, whether it's from media, whatever it is that if you don't agree with them, now you are hurting someone. And it's like the whole coddling the American mind concept, right? It's like, okay, hold on. You're being attacked because somebody doesn't agree with you. Now you're physically being harmed because somebody doesn't agree with you.
Right.
Nonsense.
Right.
You can love someone, you can accept someone, you can be friends with someone, you can do life with someone and not agree with everything that they believe in. Mm-hmm. But that's just closed-mindedness and ignorance, I think.
Yeah. I think by definition, a conservative mentality is conserving tradition.
Yeah.
And sticking to what's worked for however long.
Uh-huh.
A progressive mentality challenges those ideologies, those beliefs, and wants to progress things forward in a different direction.
Yeah.
So by definition, if you're a conservative individual, you are going to be a progressive individual is going to challenge those core beliefs that you've had.
Yeah.
Are there any core beliefs that you had growing up that you've changed your mind on, that you've evolved?
Oh, you guys ask me these questions before we go live.
Can you think of any that may not get us banned from social media that you've changed your mind on?
Do you have any that you can think of? You start.
I think of like alcohol.
Yeah.
And alcohol use. I used to think that it was just like
the devil,
reprehensible. Yeah, like you do not touch alcohol. It's the worst, and only people going to hell drink alcohol. Now, I still don't believe it is a good thing for me to consume, and it's just not part of my lifestyle. And excessive consumption. But my core beliefs that thinking it's of the devil are no longer there anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a dumb example.
See, but again, you disagree with look, I don't agree with it for me, and I don't agree. This isn't something that I want to do, but I don't think that you're a terrible person.
100%. I just think if a parent had it in their household, that was a bad thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that anymore. It's fine. If you choose that you want it to be a part of your lifestyle, go for it.
Yeah.
It's no longer a core belief for me to think that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I just personally choose that that's not going to be a part of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I'm just so entrenched anymore and thinking that, God's going to hate you or kill you because you drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe growing up, maybe it wasn't that extreme, but as a conservative, growing up in the town I grew up in, that's the view of alcohol.
Yeah. Interesting.
And my feelings on it have evolved over time.
Yeah.
And I've become more liberal, I guess you would say, on the idea on the concept of it. That's a safe one. I know it could have gone a lot more controversial.
Yeah. I guess it's probably a little bit more controversial, but the idea of homosexuality being a choice.
Yeah.
I think growing up, I thought it was a choice. You choose if you want to like the same sex.
Right.
As I've gotten
that's a good one.
Older,
same as you.
As I've gotten older, I have opened up and looked at and I see that I also think that there are some innate characteristics that are and I say characteristics, innate wiring that and again it's hard because now this is a huge one because it challenges an entire belief system that I was raised on.
Sure.
On that specific topic. Mm-hmm. But I just think that there's so many complexities within that I can't just say, hey, look, you chose to do this or you chose this, whatever. There's so many things.
Yeah, I used to think for 100% fact.
Yeah.
It was a choice.
Yeah.
You just choose to be that or you choose to be this.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you can just choose to not be that if you want.
Yeah. Even if you feel that way, just choose not to.
Just choose not. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's that easy.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
That's how I used to think.
Yeah.
Now it's, I'm
with you, or I think I'm with you in. I don't think it's cut or dry either way.
No,
I don't think you're born with it, and that's how it is.
Yeah.
And you have no choice at all.
Yeah.
I do think there's some, especially environment, the way you grow up, what's fostered in you.
Right.
I think that plays a big
Trauma.
part of it. Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of layers that go into it.
But there's people in 2020. Now everybody's sitting here thinking about it. Of course, nobody thinks that anymore. I can introduce you to 20 people right now that still believe it is 100% choice.
I can drive you to a certain portion of the country for sure that everybody. And here's the thing: is it's like, I don't know, because here's me just admitting I don't know. Like, I don't have the answer, because like some people say like, oh, God made me this way. Like, I don't know if like God chose to say, you know what, you're going to be gay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's it, but I also don't think that it's like, oh my gosh, you're so selfish. You're a sinner. You're this, you're that, because,
it's somewhere in the middle for you.
Yeah, somewhere, but I don't know. I don't know where. It could be more one side or the other. I don't know.
Right.
There's science out there that leads towards being born that way. And then there's also a lot of psychology out there that leads towards environmental impacts and, what has happened throughout your life. That I just think of, I look at my kids and I see how differently wired two kids are. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I raised these two like almost identical. Yeah. And they're completely different.
Reacting 100% different. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, there's something that you were just born with something.
I'm totally with you. My 6-year-old doesn't want to hug, doesn't want to say I love you, gets very uncomfortable in those situations. Like, does not like that at all.
It's good to know. I'm going to make him super uncomfortable next time I see him. Yes.
He's like me. He's like me in that way. I'm not touchy-feely. I don't, just leave me alone. My 3-year-old, on the other hand, loves giving hugs, loves saying I love, like, didn't raise them any different. Yeah. But that's just their innate characteristics, their innate personality.
Yep.
So I'm with you. There's something to that. Now, my 3-year-old who's more sensitive, more open to that type. Yeah. What happens if I start, nurturing that in a certain direction?
Yes.
Then does he, right? Does that foster?
What if you have this conversation? Hey, you know what? You want to wear, you can choose. Do you want to wear a dress today? Yes. Do you want to wear this? Or, hey, here's a boy. Isn't he cute? Or isn't it, you know what I mean? It's totally different, right? And it's that nature versus nurture. It's a combination.
I shouldn't joke about this, but I tell my wife that he's the closest thing you're ever going to have to a daughter, unfortunately for you. Because that's just, he likes playing with babies. He likes cooking. Yeah. Now, again, that's just, I didn't do anything to cultivate that personality. That's just who he is. Yeah. So what happens now in the next few years as he grows and matures, and there probably has something, I could probably force him a direction, but then again, it's like.
But here's the deal: is if you force it and you're like, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, then what you're doing now is, one, you're shaming the way that they feel. Right. So what that's going to do is that's either going to have him pull away, or that's going to have him hide who he truly is. And then he's going to come, live life as an imposter in his body. And then he's going to come, 20 years old. He's going to be like, hold on. Yeah.
That's the hard thing.
And then you overcorrect and it's like, okay, you know what? Actually, this community is accepting. That's what I am.
Right. Yeah. They're going to look for that validation somewhere. If you want to give it to
them. I feel different than what my dad said was acceptable.
Right. Exactly.
And that is not healthy at all.
So I've got to be open to that as his parent. Yeah. That whatever it is that, maybe I don't agree with it. Yeah. But that's just my personality that I don't agree with it. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you have to be a certain way.
Right. That's right.
So, and that's actually leads us into our final topic pretty well. It's being comfortable with being wrong. And so we'll end this part one with this. It says, if we're comfortable being wrong, we're not afraid to poke fun at ourselves. Laughing at ourselves reminds us that although we might take our decisions seriously, we don't have to take ourselves too seriously. Psychologists find that admitting we were wrong doesn't make us less competent. It's a display of honesty and a willingness to learn. Yeah. When we find out we might be wrong, a standard defense is, I'm entitled to my opinion. I'd like to modify that. Yes, we're entitled to hold opinions inside of our own heads. If we choose to express them out loud, though, I think it's our responsibility to ground them in logic and facts, share our reasoning with others, and change our minds when better evidence emerges. Every time we encounter new information, we have a choice. We can attach our opinions to our identities and stand our ground in the stubbornness of preaching and prosecuting, or we can operate more like a scientist, defining ourselves as people committed to the pursuit of truth, even if it means proving our own views wrong.
I think ultimately we as individuals need to choose which one do we want to be. Do we want to be the one that is open to new ideas, that can have conversations and be collaborative on coming to conclusions? Or do we want to be the hard-headed, arrogant, difficult people? And I choose the former. I choose.
Yeah.
I want to look. The people that I want to be around are the ones that are like, you know what? You're right. That's actually a great way to think of it. Like, let's talk through it.
That just makes you a more attractive person.
Gosh, it really does. Like the know-it-all guy, and you and I have had experiences with those people. And you know what? They're great for conversations when you're not with them.
They give you great content on the backside.
The isms that you get out of that. But you know what I mean? I would much prefer to be the person that doesn't have the ego, that can't admit that, hey, look, I don't know everything about that, or I don't have all the information, but I'd love to talk through it.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how many relationships you miss out on because you just shut down ideas or concepts that don't align with your belief systems.
Yeah, a lot of the conversations I'm having with my 6-year-old right now align with that.
Yeah.
Meaning, the way I think about my kids is I'm bringing up contributing members to our society.
Yeah.
And what's the best way for them to contribute is by getting along with others.
Yeah.
And being able to work well with others. So a lot of our conversations come back to, hey, how would your friends react to you whining about losing, a game? Or how would your friends react to you being selfish with that toy and not wanting to share?
Yeah.
I think the same thing here. How would your friends react to you being the know-it-all, never comfortable with being wrong? You probably wouldn't have friends very long. They wouldn't be around you that much.
Yep.
So again, all the conversations with my boys turns to, how does this affect and impact the people that are around you?
And not to the point where you need to be accepted by everybody.
Right.
Because that's dangerous too. Right. Is just like, oh, do what everybody else wants you to do. Mm-hmm. But I agree, is if you want to have influence, if you want to, like you said, contribute to society, if you want to be a leader, you do need to connect with people, and you do need to listen to people, and you do need to collaborate with people. And in order to do that, you have to build trust. And trust is when conversations are two ways.
That's right.
And it's not just talking at somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, the part in there, it says, psychologists find that admitting we were wrong doesn't make us look less competent. It's a display of honesty and willingness to learn.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially right now with politicians, leaders, bosses, things like that. We think, and I've fallen to this too, I think that if I admit that I'm wrong, like I said in the work scenario, right? If I tell a client that I'm wrong, that I got something screwed up, it makes me think that I'm less competent.
Yeah.
And they're not going to trust me anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas, and now in some scenarios, absolutely. Some mistakes they're not going to be able to overcome that. They've got to move on to somebody else. I get that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, these big things or these things that we play up in our mind, that if we admit that we're wrong, nobody's going to forgive us. That's not true. We want leaders that are humble. We want leaders that admit.
That's exactly right.
That's what I long for in our next leader of our country, is somebody that's not afraid to say that they're wrong.
Yeah.
When they are wrong.
Yeah.
And but for whatever reason, they're incentivized to have all the answers, no matter if they're right or wrong.
Joe Biden, if you feel like somebody is going to bomb us because you admit that, hey, look, I didn't handle that right.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I don't know the answer to that right away. I'm sorry, because that's a lot of pressure.
I think the guy before him, Trump, would have been
a
lot better off if he showed even a shred of humility.
Yeah.
Even a shred of, hey, I may be wrong here.
Yeah.
If he had any sort of personality, now there were a lot of things about his personality that made him good at the job.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that job is just getting harder to do as a good person.
Yeah.
But if he just had a shred of humility, a shred of this, I'm okay being wrong.
Yep.
I don't think he would have lost that go around.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Just because that's what turned most people off was his personality.
Oh my gosh!
So whether you're trying to win a presidential election or you're a 6-year-old in the playground trying to get your buddies to play kickball with you, it's these skills that are talked about in this section that we talked about today. They're going to ultimately get you where you want to go.
Yeah, it's good.
And so that's why I love this book. And again, there's more to come. We'll do 2 more episodes on this. There's just a lot of good.
So I have a question: do you pull off every cover for hardcover books?
I do. Yeah, just because the paper gets all loose and bent up, and so I just when I'm done reading, I'll put it back on. And
Will you
throw it in there? Probably not, but
no. I was the ones that we've had on our table. They're just blank books.
Yeah. It's got the title right here.
Hey, by the way,
I know what it is.
Speaking of books, I started Way of the Warrior Kid. My kids
they like it?
Love it. Yeah, we're like 7 or 8 chapters in the first one.
To the first one?
Yeah.
That's the one where, what does the bully do?
That's the one of the pull-ups, like we're
yes,
at the pull-up
yeah,
bar.
He's got to do, he gets in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, Uncle Jake just gotten there.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, a couple weeks back, I talked about my 6-year-old. Jocko Willink put out a series of kids' books. It's called The Way of the Warrior Kid, and my 6-year-old eats it up. And it just teaches a lot of these lessons. It teaches a lot of good life lessons.
Yeah.
Because my kid doesn't listen to me. So if I can read it in a book, he'll listen to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like your kids are eating it up too,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
I love it.
So yeah, I mean, start them with books like that. Again, that's for me. Those are the core principles I want to teach my kids, and there's resources out there, thankfully, that can help me with that, help me teach those principles. So that's one of them. But anyway, any closing thoughts?
No, man, that was good. That was a good conversation, and I mean, just being open to thinking. There's so much knowledge that we miss out on. There's so many relationships that we miss out on. It's just so much wisdom and growth that we could potentially possess if we start to think differently and to think again, right? As the book says, right? Is we just don't give up on growth intellectually, because you can always learn more and you can always grow.
Yeah. It's sticking to the principles, but being open to different thoughts. So
it's good.
Appreciate you guys. We'll come back next week and talk a little bit more about that as well, and the rest of the ways the world's falling apart. But until then, if it doesn't fall apart, we'll see you guys next week. So I hope you have a great rest of the week or great weekend. We'll see you next week.